All right, let's get started. I will just launch the presentation and then share my screen with you all. Amazing. So let me just sort this screen out. Fantastic. All right, so you're all here to hear me talk about mastering your retainer pricing. Pricing is one of those things that is very close to my journey. It's been something that's certainly been up and down for me, and I know many people struggle with it. So I really wanted to bring this to you today just to share my experiences over the last decade and probably the last 2 decades as well. So why are you here? Now, 60% of marketing agencies don't make it past year 3, and many don't make it past the first year. So why is that? A lot of it has to do with mindset, and of course, a lot to do with underpricing. It's also poor systems for cash management, over-reliance on referrals and poor sales, and doing it all alone as well. There's also founder reliance and operational efficiencies. Now, of course, here today we're going to be talking about underpricing, but if you wait around to the end, I do have an offer where I'll talk about many of these other components as well. So what we will cover today, we're going to be looking at value-based pricing, how it fuels sustainable growth. And I'll also look at the mechanics of pricing and kind of how it works structurally. We'll build a clear, repeatable pricing process and talk about confident, high-ticket pitches and also, of course, objection handling, which is super important. I'll talk about selling before you feel 100% ready to sell in those services, and mindset, which is obviously a very huge component. Now, don't worry if you're not selling anything yet. I do talk about sort of scaling up from 10K months, but if you're not selling anything, that's fine. This framework is designed kind of to meet you where you are and help you grow. So who am I? Some of you know me, some of you don't. I have built multiple 7-figure agencies. When I first started, I helped someone else build an agency, and then I went on to build my own agency, which I will talk about in a second. I've now rebuilt that agency from scratch as well. I do have also a decade as an enterprise level project manager. So I was in charge of multi-million-dollar projects at a global level for enterprise. And I have a behavioural science degree as well. I built a large agency, but I had zero profit, which I will talk about. And I rebuilt my current agency from scratch with high retainers and high profit. And I'm a single mum of 3 girls. So I really understand the juggle of having an agency and really designing something for you. So when I first started out, it was really feast to famine for me. So before I became an agency owner, so back when I worked in corporate, I quoted in millions. So I was used to quoting kind of big dollars. And then when I started in agency land, we pitched in 50 to 80K retainers. So, you know, it wasn't unusual for me to quote big prices. But then when I went out on my own, I started quoting $1,500 retainers because I just lacked the confidence. I thought, no one's going to want to buy from me. I'll just quote as low as possible so I can bring all the business in. And of course, I got kind of stuck in that rush and I burnt out really quickly. About a year in, one day, I shut the roller door of my warehouse. I kind of worked in a warehouse building. And I sobbed nonstop for 6 hours. In the first 2 years, I kind of went from 10K months, so sometimes it was amazing and I had all this money, to $500. And then I went through a divorce. And at that point, there were days when we lived on pasta and cheese, and I was really terrified of where money was going to come from. The breakthrough for me at this point in my journey was really confidence. So it was moving out of doing the work. I brought in a business partner, and at that point, I had a lot of belief that I had the team to back up the results. And that confidence made a huge difference to start charging more. Then we scaled and burnt. So I grew a big agency of 20 plus staff, and we had 250K a month in revenue. We were charging big retainers, some small, you know, average about 8K, but we had absolutely no profit. We didn't set any boundaries with clients. We had huge amounts of scope creep. We just kept doing more and more work to justify this 8K. We had a lot of underperforming staff, and we're constantly putting out fires. I was burnt out, stressed out, and I had no time with my family. And the reason why I really wanted to run an agency was to spend more time with my family. The breakthrough really came for me when my business partner walked out and left me with all this mess. But I redesigned my agency on my terms, and now we have high profits. I have time for myself, and I gave myself a job that I love, which is marketing. I love marketing and I love working with the bigger clients. I wanted to share with you and be really transparent about my financial journey because I think it's really important. So when I first started out, it was low and it was up and down. I went through a divorce and it was incredibly tough. Then we got all the way up there and it was fantastic, amazing, had all this revenue, but absolutely zero profit, right? Really, really low margins. And then back up again. So I've built it back up from scratch and now we have high charges. We've got the right team, which is actually really small, and we have really high margins. So I wanted to reiterate that running a successful agency is not the size of your team or the volume of revenue you have. Everyone's always talking about 7 figures and it's, I've got all this revenue, but the reality is that what success is profit and alignment with your life. So let's talk about the $20,000 ceiling. So most agency owners hit a wall between 10 to 20K a month. What happens is there's this time for money trap. So they're doing all the work themselves or they're charging by the hour, and you can only sell so many hours as a freelancer or a founder. Let's say you had 10 hours a day that you were giving to clients and that was over 7 days a week. That's 280 hours a month. And at $100 an hour, which is kind of the average freelancer's charge, that's only 28K. And you're completely maxed out and burnt out. And you basically haven't seen another human being for 30 days. How many people can wear every hat as well? Like how many people can do ads and design and development and everything? So at some point, you're going to need to hire. So let's look at the $100,000 agency. Now, there are obviously many ways that that agency can be broken up. You can have $1,500 retainers, and there are many big successful agencies that have small retainers and a lot of clients. Now, at that point, you're going to need a lot more account managers. You're going to have a lot more processes, a lot more, low customer or client engagement. Now, the $5,000 retainer mark, you've got, say, 20 clients and you're going to need 2 to 3. We actually had about 8 account managers when we were running the business at that middle spot. You're going to need sort of medium processes, but at the 30K retainer mark, you're looking at 3 to 4 clients, 1 account manager, and more diverse offerings. This can be a higher risk, obviously, if you've only got 3 to 4 clients in the business, but I do teach ways that you can bolster up that revenue with really secure offerings. And again, I'm being really transparent about what a 30K retainer looks like. So this is one of our clients and the exact split of retainer that we offer. So we have strategy and management. We don't ever quote hours to clients. However, we do look at those internally, and I will go through that later on. We have social media management, which is about 20 hours. Affiliate and ambassador. This is an e-commerce client, I should mention as well. We offer email management, which also includes campaign management and competitions. We have paid ads, Facebook and Google. We also look after all of their customer service. And if you do work with e-commerce clients, I highly recommend that as an offering. We have SEO, and what I always put in is an overflow. This overflow and this buffer is really important the higher level you get because you're charging more. Clients always expect more, and you kind of have it in the back of your mind that you should be giving more. If you don't have that buffer, then you end up having to constantly charge them more, which feels a little bit out of alignment. So I include a buffer in that. We've also, in the last 6 months, also quoted about 80,000 in additional project and design fees. Now, this is the support team, so it's not huge, and most of the people in my team, have capacity for more. Michael, who's our campaign manager, probably doesn't have much capacity for too much more, but he does a lot of the work on this particular client. We then have an ad specialist who has a huge amount of capacity to work on other clients. We have a fractional CMO, which is actually me for this particular client, mostly because I just absolutely love working with this client and what they do. We then have SEO. Of course, it's only a very small part of what our SEO person does. Customer service, again, it's a small part. And then the designer, it's a very, very small part of what she does. We always quote web development on top because it's really a big chunky piece of what we do, and it's not very frequent that we do it. Sorry, my screen gets stuck sometimes. Just give me one moment. I'm just going to unstick it and okay, I'll share the screen again. Okay, so let's talk about the mechanics of pricing. So you've got time versus value consideration. So you can quote in time-based pricing, and a lot of freelancers do that. It's obviously easy to calculate, but it caps revenue and often undervalues impact. It puts clients as well into this constant tracking mindset. So they're always looking at how many hours you've done versus actually looking at the result. Versus value-based pricing. Now, when I say value-based pricing, we still calculate based on time because you're still going to have to obviously pay your employees by time, but we only ever quote based on value. So we only ever quote on this is the cost of this particular component, and this is what you're going to get as an outcome. So it really does require understanding of the client's perceived value and the return on investment as well. Sorry, I'll go back. Okay, so the psychology of value pricing, I think this is really important to understand. So we've got perceived value is greater than cost. So as marketers, you probably already know this, but people don't buy hours or time, they buy outcomes. So for example, when you buy skincare, you don't care how long it took somebody to make it and to create it. You care about looking younger or more attractive or solving some kind of skin problem. Price quality heuristic. So if it costs more, people have this mindset if it costs more, it must be better. Of course it's better. It's a higher value. Look at jewelry, for example. We've actually lost a client more than once because we were lower. We came in lower than other agencies, and they were questioning, how could that be possible? How could you possibly be charging less? Then there's the endowment effect. So once people imagine owning the result, they value it more. So once they get into that sort of mindset of, I'm going to get these results, suddenly the value becomes higher. Then there's simplicity and confidence. So keep it simple, stupid. So really that confidence and keeping it simple actually builds trust. When you over explain things, it can actually reduce the value. Then there's loss aversion. So fear of missing out is stronger than the hope of achieving. So show them what they're going to miss, i.e. the potential revenue. And then identity and status. So align your offer with their vision. And that can be things like, this is what successful people do, or this is what all the big brands are doing, right? This is what, this is why logos often work for authority. It's saying, hey, this is what these guys are doing. If you don't do it, you're somehow going to be not as good. So pricing and format. So obviously there are simple retainers, which is what we do, which is ongoing monthly fees for services plus fees for anything out of scope. Then there are fixed price. There are some people I know of that do fixed prices, which is one set price, regardless of how much time is spent each month. Obviously, some months will be less, some months will be more. This can result in endless tasks and huge amount of cost. So we always make sure we do a simple retainer plus fees if are out of scope. Then there's performance-based. You would have heard performance-based before. I stay very far away from this based purely on experience. I started out doing performance-based and got very burnt every single time I've done it. The reason being is that you can result in huge losses for you in the start, and you're expecting to get that back later on. But when the client starts to grow and realize how much percentage is going to you, they inevitably want out. And it's not the kind of position you want to be in long term. Okay, so trick to making profit. Set your hourly rate, but don't quote with it. So average employee contractor fee, let's say I would average it out and then add 50 to 70%. So for example, we usually quote in $210 an hour. I find it helps to have that hourly figure in my head, because if I'm on a call and a client says, hey, I need this, and I can think, right, it's going to take 10 hours, I can quickly spout out, okay, it's going to be, 2K, right? it really helps you to quickly calculate costs without really overthinking it. You need to know the hourly rate because your staff will be paid by the hour. So it's really important to have that in your head. But if you do have any staff or any white label arrangements, we do have that with SEO. Just always, in my mind, I always double it or add a little bit more. So double and a little bit more. But you need to sit down and work out what your healthy margin is and then calculate that backwards. Always make sure in the total retainer that you're building in margin for leadership time, for creative space, for scope creep, and for future growth, not just delivery. So scoping and estimation, clearly define what's included. So deliverables, timelines, meetings, and always use repeatable scoping templates. So we know that Facebook ads cost this. We know that Google ads cost this. Customer service costs this. But you may have extras that you need to add in for specific types of clients. So there are clients that will come in that might need more creative, which is why it's really important to do those initial scoping exercises. For those of you who don't know me, you might not have seen the brand diagnostic before, but it's a tool we use to work through with clients where they're at and kind of workshop any needs they might have so that we can scope this properly. One really important factor is adding in automatic increases. So what I do with a client, if I start them out small, let's say that, they look like, or they're not interested in bigger budget, we might start them out small. And then we add the increases into their Xero invoices. So I don't have to be constantly going, oh God, I've got to add more and feeling stressed about that. It just automatically gets sent. They're well aware that that's going to happen in their contract and it just gets sent over time. And it's usually based on things like achieving results or just actually getting specific work done. So let's talk about pitching with ease. So repeat after me. This is one thing I say to myself constantly is that is what it costs, right? It just is what it costs. And so many times people, clients will say, hey, this guy's doing it cheaper or somebody else is doing it cheaper. And you get that fear in your mind of, oh God, should I be making this cheaper? But the reality is that is what it costs. If you have mapped it out, you've worked out the hours, you've worked out how much margin you need in there, then that is what it costs because it absolutely costs money to scale. And depending on where your client is at, most will be below sort of 100K months when they come to you. They require big effort to get big results. I know over time that anyone that we've underquoted for, we haven't been able to get results for because we haven't had the capacity to do it. My 30K clients grow because we have the team to build what we need to build in order for them to scale. And they scale because we have the time in it. If you underquote, you will waste, and I've got the shouting lady here because I want to shout this from the rooftops. You will waste your clients' money if you don't charge enough. You'll be spinning wheels with their budget and you'll be charging. So if you're charging correctly, you're doing the right thing by them and you. So some techniques from a sales perspective, anchoring and framing, you will know some of these, but I'll just reiterate them. So you can create sort of 3 options to give them. This is obviously, a great way to sell in different pricing. Obviously they can start here, but if they get to here, they'll get X, Y, Z. Now the high anchor, the 30K, makes it look like a really smart investment. ROI framing, so show how you offer how your offer multiplies their investment. So a 30K retainer can get them XYZ. If they're on a 10K retainer, we can get them 100K. On a 30K retainer, we can get them $1 million a month, right? Obviously, it needs to make sense and be realistic, but it's a really great technique. Now, the chunking up is a great one I learned from Stan Wave. Anyone knows him from Cat Circles. Chunking up and chunking down, it's a great sales technique. When you're talking to someone or having a conversation, sort of starting with how much money they're going to make and then pitch them the cost of what it costs, right? So you start with the big, what their result's going to be, and then you pitch in the cost after that. So talking about objection handling, so preemptive framing, clients typically ask about ROAS, time commitment, and what makes this different. So let's unpack that together now. So really have that conversation with them before they ask the questions. And then we've got risk reversal. So reduce buying friction with guarantees, roadmaps. Guarantees is a very careful one, I would say, because I'm not a big fan of guarantees. We can't guarantee anything in marketing. What we do in marketing is a test. So really it's more about things like low-hanging fruit guarantees, which is one thing I always talk about. Small wins that you know you can achieve early on, and adding those in. And then roadmaps and pilot phases. So here's exactly what happens in month 1, month 2, etc. So scarcity and exclusivity, obviously, great in marketing, cap the number of clients, close the doors, or offer by application only. So your time is finite, treat it like a luxury product. Another one I get asked a lot about is selling in services or offers before you have the team, which many of you will be in that position now. So there's sort of one of you and you want to grow and you want to sell in services, but you don't have the team yet. And you absolutely can do that. And it's certainly exactly where I started. So what you can do is, one, focus on your experience, so show frameworks and trends, but also you can hire contractors ready to go or white label, and use their case studies, leverage those case studies, because provided that you will be using them, but you'll be using them to run the ads or run the customer service. So leverage their case studies. You can also partner with white label agencies and leverage their experience as well. You can even bring them into calls as well, provided you plan to use them moving forward. Okay, so framework to move from 5K to 30K. So often I will start lower with clients and move up, and I'll go through a little bit of how I've done that in a second. So starting out defining the 30K problem, you want to then elevate the offer. You can change the buyer if it doesn't work, and develop pricing logic, and then shift your language. So let's go through each of those. So defining the 30K problem. So big money solves big problems, which is what I was saying before. What problem does a 30K buyer desperately want solved? What's the strategic transformation? What's the revenue growth? And then what is the high stakes execution? So if you're solving a 5K problem, you'll stay at 5K. So you need to upgrade the problem, right? So you need to work out what it is that you can offer in that 30K. You want to elevate the offer, so make it strategic, not tactical. Package the outcomes and the transformation, not just the deliverables. Include strategy and implementation. That is a big one that we always include. And to be honest with you, those elements are the make or break. It is having that strategic component in your retainers that will make a client succeed. Take the client on a journey to visualize their growth, which is what we do in the brand diagnostic process. And I actually do this every quarter with my clients to keep them looking at the growth. Offer priority access or dedicated relationships, and then, add intellectual property as well. So frameworks, a lot of agencies have frameworks and audits and the brand diagnostic. Another way, really, if you're playing in the 5K arena, you can change the buyer, because not all buyers are going to be 30K kind of clients, right? So you can't sell a 30K retainer to someone with a 10K problem. So if they're really not ready, that's the biggest element, that they won't be ready necessarily to shift up. You want to go from serving operators, so smaller businesses, to owners and execs, so bigger business. Really define who that is. For e-commerce, it tends to be those who've had, they've got products in retail, but they haven't really moved online. That's a really good one. Lead gen, it's the companies with the bigger types of sales, builders and real estate. You want clients who make buying decisions easily. So, ones that don't need to consult their wife or husband, ones that really have a focus on return on investment, not hours. And during that initial discovery session, you will understand, who they are. So You really want people who respect your time and see you as a partner, not a labor hire. I think that is really crucial. And the successful clients that I work with really do respect my time and value my time. And we're partners. They really see me as a partner, not just as someone who does work for them. So develop pricing logic. Don't just raise prices. Don't just go, right now I'm charging 30K. Build a story around the value that you're offering. So this 30K retainer generates 250K in results. In fact, our 30K retainer, the client gets over $1 million in results per month, and this is going up every month as well. So, working with me replaces a full-time hire at, a third of the cost. And clients typically see 5 times return on investment within. So I just want to talk about one of my 30K clients and the fact that we started on a 4K strategy session. So Q1, we added ads after the strategy. They were working with another agency, but we quickly gained their trust. Then we added email and creative, then affiliate, social media, strategy, actually SEO as well. And then we added customer service. We're now about to launch $500,000 budget for above the line television, billboard and radio as well. So when you're working with clients and you're growing with them, this is the kind of stuff that's possible. Let's talk about mindset, which is obviously one of those crucial components of getting to this point. Now, breaking the belief barrier. So one of my clients used to say to me all the time, no one's going to spend $3,000 directly from an ad. But we see multiple purchases every single day from the first time visit, straight from an ad, straight into the website. So someone's ability to pay or their view of money is absolutely none of your business. And, it's really one of those tricks, and one of those issues I see a lot of people have is saying, oh, they can't afford it. Or, how are they going to pay that? I can't pay that. How can they pay it? But the reality is you don't know anyone's financial position. You don't know anyone's position in terms of how willing they are to pay for something. So it's really none of your business. You need to focus on your value. Right? If you believe you can get results, the client will be happy to pay the money. Your price reflects your beliefs, not just the market. So you're not just pricing a service, you're pricing your sense of worth. And you need to realize that. If you're struggling to charge more, you need to sit down and work out what some of those barriers might be. And I'll go through some of them in a moment. What you believe clients will pay shapes what you charge. Pricing is often emotional and not logical. And if you don't believe in your price, neither will your client. And that was really my issue when I first started out. I knew that what I was pitching, I would probably have to do most of the work. Therefore, I was really hesitant. I had a lot of resistance around charging more because then I was thinking, oh God, now I'm going to have to do more and I don't have the time. When I broke that by bringing someone else into the business and there was more time and I had more team, it was very quick to be able to charge more. It was very quick growth as soon as I was able to do that. So looking at the mindset matrix. So you've got imposter syndrome, which a lot of us have, and I think we always will have it. It's not about getting rid of it. It's more about accepting it as something that we have. Often it means we care more, but it manifests as underpricing, overworking, constantly just kind of give more, a reluctance to increase prices and difficulty owning success. So one way to get past that is focus on the value you can bring and just accept that you will have imposter syndrome from time to time. Scarcity is another one. So that's fear of losing clients. So you suddenly get worried, oh God, I've lost a client. Oh my God, now I have to suddenly charge less to win more clients. And it's not the answer. The reality is that generally when you lose a client, another 5 will appear, right? It always happens in business. In agency life, I've always seen it. When I lose one client, I get a way better one. And it's really about finding the right clients and keeping clients informed of results and constantly being transparent. There's a fear of rejection, so avoiding sales conversations because you're worried they're going to say no, discounting a lot, and then obviously over accommodating clients again. So you've got to enjoy no's. I think that's a really important thing to do. Every no that you get just means that you're getting closer to a yes. And approach every sales call instead of it being, I have to get this sales call. It's really just a learning experience. So you're getting on that call, you're just going to come out of it with a new understanding of your perfect client, and they are objecting to things. You're going to come up with new ways of showing your value. And then there's projection, which is assuming your prices are too high or a client can't pay, which really, again, as I said before, it's none of your business. So focus on what costs you and then the value you bring. So fear-based pricing versus power-based pricing, this is just an example. So fear-based is based on assumptions. Power-based is based on outcomes. Fear-based over-explains, and power-based owns the value and says, this is just what it costs. Fear-based discounts quickly. Power-based holds the lines and just says, okay, you don't want to pay it, that's fine. Fear-based feels nervous presenting, and power-based feels aligned and clear, and I know that this is what it costs. I know we can deliver, and has that real confidence. I've talked about my journey a little bit, and there were those two really crucial moments of failure for me at the agency level. And one of those, the first one, was that lack of confidence. So that manifested in undercharging, not closing clients. And the way I solved that was adding a business partner and a mentor, and I gained confidence in my team's strength and capability. The second one was the lack of agency design, and that was a lot of elements to that. So there was low margin, unnecessary spillage, high risk, and a lifestyle that I absolutely hated. I was just constantly working, constantly trying to build this big agency. In actual fact, I didn't really want a big agency. I wanted to work in marketing. I wanted a small team. I didn't want that big agency lifestyle. And so it's so important to build the agency around what you want, and that'll be different for every single person. It took me a really long time to find the answers. And so I wanted to build a program, and I have built a program that really is about designing an agency from the ground up. I call it the upside down agency because it really is about designing the agency before you grow it so that it grows really effortlessly and without the heartache and the risk. So I've built a program which runs for 90 days of high impact support, mastermind calls twice a week. So there's one support call and one mastermind. A private dashboard with call recordings and lots of tools and templates that we use in our agency and that I built to help my agency grow. A supportive community of growth-focused agency owners scaling alongside you. Direct access to me and my expert team, including Taylor, who is our senior ads strategist who works with budgets over $1 million a month. And this I built really at a really low price as an introductory price, and it will never be that price again. So let's just have a look at what we'll do over that 90-day period. So starting with designing an aligned agency that fits your schedule and life. Shifting from survival pricing to strategic high-level pricing. So we'll go through a lot of what we've worked through, but I'll work with you, one-on-one to really help you lift those prices. Creating an ecosystem of leads. So one thing that I think is really important is to not constantly be going, oh God, I need more leads, and out you go to try and find more leads. This is creating an ecosystem of leads and working on soulful selling as well. We'll overcome the hidden mindset blocks holding your agency back. So really focusing on what I think is really important in mindset, which is repetition, and then resistance as well, removing that resistance. We'll design a strategy to create consistent recurring revenue, which again, I think is really crucial for any agency. And you'll access real-time coaching in a tight-knit transformation-driven group setting. We'll develop systems and SOPs that will reduce overwhelm. Master cash flow. Cash flow was one of the biggest issues that we had, and it took me a long time to work out the way of really managing cash flow and profit, and work it through leading and growing your team with confidence. So who's this for? This is for agency owners, anyone starting out or kind of hitting that 10 to 20, 30K ceiling. Really looking for, clarity and high profit agency. It's not for freelancers who want to stay solo or agency owners who are attached to hourly pricing. Anyone looking for a quick fix, because this takes, a little bit of time to get right, and you're building long-term systems. Anyone who isn't willing to get uncomfortable, because we will be looking at mindset and we will be really putting in those tools to change your mindset, which sometimes can get uncomfortable. Or it's not for anyone who wants to say in the kind of client pleasing mode instead of stepping into a leadership role. And my screen's stuck again. The last screen just essentially says that if you have any questions, I am offering an opportunity to jump directly on a call with me, and you're welcome just to jump on that call to talk about what's going wrong in your business. I will pop in a link to that in the chat in a second. That also will be sending you an email with a link to this program as well. So I'm just going to stop sharing and then open up the Q&A if anyone's got any questions. I can see a couple in here. So Juliet, so do you ever base your retainers based on their ad spend? That's a really good question. And the answer is kind of yes. So what we do in a lot of cases is we will build in that time growth. So we'll start them and say, look, you're going to be spending 10K a month or 5K a month on ad spend. Once your ad spend gets to 20K, we'll increase the retainer. That's a really good way to leverage those increases over time. I hope that answers the question. So another question. So with the example of the upgrade to outdoor and TV, did you just find an outsourced arm as your expertise is more on paid media? Yeah, absolutely. So everything that I do, if there is a need for the client. Now, this particular client has a lot of trust in us, and he wouldn't go elsewhere. So he would come to me and say, what do you want to do about this? So yes, we interviewed quite a number of media buys at the above the line position. And then we work with the media buyer to hire the right production team, and then the radio as well. So he kind of coordinates that with us. So absolutely, I'll always look for outsourced resources. And then, we're not going to deliver something we don't know. We're always going to deliver something that we know very well. And then over time, if it comes to the point where we get really good at that, then of course we'll bring that in-house. Another question, how did you go about finding the kinds of clients who can afford 30K months? Yeah, so initially it was more about finding clients that could afford, those 5, 10K kind of months. And we've grown those clients up to the 30K month. Now it's about, because I know these clients well and I know the kind of clients that they are, I know what it looks like. So we work with mostly e-commerce. And I know that, they've come from this position where they sell quite a lot in retail, but they don't sell a lot online. So I know where there's these gaps that would potentially be those 30K clients a month. And so I can curate those lists on LinkedIn and build those funnels to have conversations with them. There's a lot of content that goes out that to these kinds of clients, talking about the success that we're seeing with this client. And, one of these big clients has gone from 50K months to $1 million months. So it's a pretty compelling case study. Another question, I'm brand new in the ad space and just started out after taking another course and haven't landed my first client. Is this something you still recommend? I mean, look, I think everything in what we've gone through in pricing is very crucial to understanding, how to position yourself. In terms of the program we're going through, absolutely, it's really for anyone. We're going to be creating an agency that's designed for your life. And that's one of the most important things. And the thing that I think is most important is creating something that is for you. I thought I wanted the big agency. I wanted a small agency and a small team so I could spend more time with my kids. So it's about creating that agency that is going to support that growth. And you can do that starting out, or you can do that at the 20, 30K mark, or even higher as well. There's so much in this program that really I couldn't find when I, was at either of those two positions when I failed. And so I wanted to pack as much as I could in about understanding profit and cash flow, understanding how to build SOPs. It's really meaty, but I think it's so crucial and important to really kind of design everything as structurally as you can, so that when you do grow, when you do start charging more, you don't suddenly scramble and everything falls apart, because you've got everything in place to support that growth, and it just becomes so much more effortless. And you're not kind of burning out and struggling. Juliet, how do you structure your proposals in terms of your fees versus ad spend? I noticed the ad spend costs were not on your price chart that broke down the 30K return. Yeah, ad spend is always separate for me. So in terms of working with clients on their forecasting, we obviously include the spend in the forecasting, but we also include our retainer fees as well. And the two, really align together, and it is just what it is. We don't hide behind, oh God, you're going to be paying 20K for ads, you don't want to pay more for us. The reality is the spend is the spend. We cost money to get you to the point where the spend no longer matters. When we're talking at that $1 million level of these clients who are paying higher budgets, the gap is much smaller. So when you're playing small, obviously these clients go, oh God, I'm going to pay you 10K and I'm going to pay 10K in ad spend, and I'm only going to get X, Y. It will take a little bit of time to move out of that. And one, it's about finding the right kind of clients, but two is just reminding yourself is that's what it costs, right? That's what it costs to deliver that kind of stuff. I.e. presenting that to the client. Yeah, and it's really about walking them through a forecast. So you need to be walking through your forecast of how much it's going to cost in ad spend, how much it's going to cost in your fees, if there are any other fees as well. Sometimes there are additional fees for subscriptions and anything else that you're pitching in. You need to look at all of those fees, and sometimes it doesn't make sense, and you need to accept that. You need to say, okay, I'm going to come across a client where I'm going to pitch my services in, I'm going to pitch in the spend, and I'm going to look at the numbers based on what they're currently doing and say, oh, actually, they're not going to get a return on investment for 6 months. Can they manage that? Because the reality is there's no point hiding behind it. There's just absolutely no point going, well, I'll just lower my fees, or I'll just lower their spend and hopefully I can get the results. You won't get the results. They'll be unhappy. You'll be unhappy. So what do you say when clients need 3 times to make it profitable to do paid ads today? So, and this is where it's deciding on or working out if it's the right client, right? So if the client is in a position where they are really starting out and they have no money and they come to you and say, I don't have much budget, but I really want to make it work, I would actually pretty much walk away straight away from that conversation. But sometimes, you might want to make it work. But the reality is that's what it costs. So if, they can't invest a certain amount of money to last the next 3 or 6 months, they aren't the right person for you to work with. And there are thousands and thousands of businesses out there that are in a position to work with you, that they do have the budget. And it's really about finding those ones, because you'll be in a world of pain if you start trying to commit to things that you can't deliver. So if you're saying to them, oh, okay, I'm going to get you 3 times return on ad spend just so that you can win this client over, it will come back and haunt you. It will result in either the client leaving unhappy and they've not made money, or you're going to be doing 10 times more to try and make it work. So the reality is that is what it costs. Does ROAS goals limit scalability? Can I ask you to redefine that, anonymous attendee? So return on ad spend goals limiting scalability, I can't see why it would. But if you want to redefine the question, I'm happy to answer it. And I think I'll give you a minute to rethink it. I'm just going to jump in the chat and see if there's anything. I think Paulie, how do you project their growth to potential clients when you don't have enough experience to say how much revenue or growth they can expect? And that's a really good question, and that takes a little bit of time and experience, Paulie. So that's just really about how do you project growth when you don't have the experience to say how much revenue growth. And look, the reality is that you should be going in with a lower kind of return on ad spend early on, and then scaling that up, because the reality is it'll be smaller when you first start out, and you can only start out. It can only ever estimate. So anything we do in marketing is hypotheses. We can only really hypothesize to say this is what we think we'll get based on the industry averages, or based on your own experience. And if you don't have the experience, reach out to someone who works in the space that does have the experience and say, this particular client, how much do you normally get return on ad spend from starting out point or a later on point? Because most agencies I've worked across lead gen and e-commerce, I will know just looking at the average order value or looking at the sale price for lead gen, I know how much to expect from a benchmark from their initial ads through to when they've kind of had a lot running as well. So reach out, get the answers. Okay, are you offering anything AI related to your clients? Are we offering anything AI? We're doing a lot in the AI, from turning static images into kind of live images. Remember, we work mostly in e-commerce, but we are using AI for our own internal sales processes. So getting AI to find the right messaging for LinkedIn, to find the right clients, to reaching out. We're doing a lot from that perspective. We don't actually offer any AI specific offers to clients at the moment. Great question though, because I am literally obsessed with AI. I think it can do so much from a strategic perspective. We just did a huge market analysis for a client, and we tested every little bit of information that we got back from the market and the consumer through AI, and got incredibly informative results. So I'm a big AI believer. Someone that was the ROAS, just meaning if your ads manager says they can't grow it as we're aiming for profitable first order, so say ROAS limits growth. I understand the question. Maybe reach out to me and I can answer that one separately, and we can have a chat about it. I'm happy to jump on a call as well. Someone else has said, would you still recommend to start with PB ads as a starting agency? Yeah, I mean, I do definitely, recommend starting off as ads. That's where I started off with Facebook ads offering. And then we just grew from there. It is one of the best ways to get short-term results versus any other part that we offer. So that is really one of the best starting points. There isn't really Google or Facebook ads or any other kind of social media, Facebook being the best still at the moment. Great place to start always. No, I didn't tell you how much the course is. It's really low cost. It's $150 per week if paid upfront, but that is all in the landing page, and you can read more about it. It will never be this price again either. So it's super low cost. I wanted to really bring the program alive because it's something I've felt passionate about for so long. I really suffered many times without the support that I needed. So I wanted to make sure I bring something to life that was as good as it could be. Another question, can you tell us more about what it means to have access to your paid ads manager team? So it means asking questions there's two places, Facebook group we have, and then also there's a circle dashboard. So you will have access to be able to ask questions. I have my paid ads team, but also I have overall a decade of experience on Facebook ads myself. So you can also ask me questions. Will have my whole team in those groups. So email campaign manager, SEO, we'll have lots of different questions that you can ask specifically to my team. So what kind of ads are you running? Just LinkedIn. We generally, in terms of ads, Nadia, we really do Facebook ads, Google ads. We don't really touch any other ads accounts. We did do a little bit of TikTok, but we just find that the Facebook for our e-commerce, because we're mostly in e-commerce, Facebook ads tend to be the best. Is your team all full-time? No, they're absolutely not. My team is not all full-time. That is another crucial component to successfully scaling your agency. That was the mistake we made the first time. We thought we had to hire full-time to get the best people, but I soon realized that that's not the case. So I really only have a couple of full-time people. Everybody else are contractors. I think it's really important. Then I have a lot of offshore resources these days as well to bolster up the offering, because when you get really full-time heavy, then it kills the agency. And to ask more about what is your offer. Did you mean the offer we offer clients or the offer in the program? Just to reiterate, you can book in a call. I'm just going to grab the call link and drop it in the chat so you can make a booking. Just give me 1 second. I will grab that. All right, so I will just drop that in the chat. If I know how to actually add that into the chat. Okay, I'm just going to drop that into the chat. So that's my call link that you can jump on and book a call, ask me any questions about the program, any questions about what we've talked about today, or just generally in agency land. I've just got another question. I'm going to answer one more and then I'm going to jump off. Actually, two, because I can see one from Dawn as well. So answering Lexus, do you have, sorry, my screen keeps jumping up. Do you have any suggestions for anyone that's close to giving up? I've been in industry for 6 years. I specialize in the coaching space, and it just seems like business has dropped. I can't, sorry, the question, it says slow jump because people can't afford a high ticket program. Yeah, look, I mean, I think the economy is one of those things that keeps coming up a lot. And honestly, you know, for looking at my clients, particularly one of them, but more than one, we haven't really seen a dip. So it's again one of those mindset things that maybe there is something happening for you from a mindset perspective that is blocking you. And I know for me, it's been a number of different times where I've had those real blockers that once I was able to remove, changed everything. There are people that are spending $6,000 on sheds straight from ads, and they're doing it day in, day out. And we're seeing that in the millions of dollars. So is the economy, I mean, obviously we're in Australia and you know, the US is different. I've got a lot of people from the US and Canada on here. But we have, you know, the economy here is generally reported as being terrible right now, but we still see people spending money. So I think it's one of those things of what can I do to really redesign what I'm offering, redesign my agency to work for me, and eliminate some of those barriers that might actually be stopping me. You know, maybe you're thinking that people can't afford it, and maybe you just need to eliminate that barrier. Sorry, one more. No one can see the call link. Okay. I don't know whether it's hidden. It's going to come in the email anyway, which will be within the next couple of minutes. We just need to wait for the download so that we can send you the recording. And then, yes, please feel free to book it in. We can have a chat. And I really, really appreciate everyone coming today. I've had a lot of fun. It's something I'm really passionate about sharing. So I appreciate your time. It is obviously an hour out of your day. It's late for some people, early for others. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope you got lots out of it, and hopefully we can speak soon. Have an amazing evening and an amazing day. Thank you. Bye.